Pakistan. We need to be prepared. We need to learn from examples of things that have happened in the country, that have happened globally. I'm really excited to be getting into a panel that focuses on renewable energies, which is very close to my heart. And I have this amazing cohort of people with me. So I'll introduce them, add them to the screen one by one. And we have just to give a small info, with us, Kamran Kamal Saab, who is the CEO of Laraib Energy. He is leading Pakistan's first independent hydel power plant. And of course, he is significantly involved on strategizing for policy, being as a technology and policy specialist. And of course, business development and wholesale electricity market are some of his key areas of expertise. Next, we have Dr. Fatima Khusnood, and happy to have you here. We've had a lot of interactions previously. Dr. Fatima is currently the business development head at Engro Energy. And in the past, of course, working at in the past, she's been associated with the Independent Power Producers Association. And I think one of the most exciting things, and I've learned a lot from her there, but the fact that the Power Producers Association comprised all men and the CEO was a woman, which, of course, means there's a lot to get and learn from the experiences Dr. Fatma has. Then we have, of course, Najy Benhassine, who is now the country director of World Bank. Previously, he's been associated with, he's been in the World Bank since 2001, so that's, as it is, quite a long time, but areas of expertise include finance, competitiveness, and of course, innovation. So being in the MENA region for quite a long time, and also previous experience of consulting with McKinsey and Company. So again, I think quite a few heavyweights on this panel altogether, starting off. And then last but not least, Daniyal Siddiqui, who is the CEO of DS Global and Evolve Consultants. And Daniyal is one of the leading solar energy services companies in Pakistan. They're doing a lot of work in the industrial EPC side, and no one better than Daniyal to talk about renewable energy opportunities and skills with his experience in solar. So just to set the premise of this panel, we know that globally, almost 11 billion jobs have been created in renewable energies worldwide. And in Pakistan, we want to understand, of course, through this STEM job fair that we're organizing, we would like to understand how Pakistan can adopt similar practices, what Pakistan can do to sort of, improve the green jobs, what exactly green jobs mean, and then how we can, engage more women in the green field as well. So I'd like to start off with Mr. Najy Benhassine, of course, and because, some of our interests, when I was reading your profile, innovation, competitiveness was kind of a little bit of an alignment. So I'm primarily a business person. I'm working as a consultant in my core field of work. And one of my favorite frameworks in these so many years have been talking about the triple bottom line, which is, of course, taking into consideration the planet, people, and profits together as we do business. When we speak about renewable energy, we almost always look at it from a climate perspective or opportunities that are to do with environment. But if you could talk a little bit about what are the kind of economic opportunities and what are the kind of social opportunities that renewable energies in general provide, and of course, engaging or improving the workforce related to green energy. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Hira. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So first, good morning to all, and I'd like to congratulate you for this great initiative for the virtual job fair, and very, very happy to join you today. Because it's an important event, but also in this panel because of the importance of renewable energy for the World Bank in general, and in our work on Pakistan, and in fact, for the recent graduates and all job seekers, particularly women, if there's one sector I would bet on in terms of its potential for job creation for the coming years, it's definitely the one of renewable energy, because the growth is going to be very strong by choice, by necessity, and because this is because there's a strong commitment in Pakistan and elsewhere for to invest in the sector. There's absolutely no doubt that Pakistan needs to embark on a major scale up of renewable energy, and the potential is huge, particularly in solar, but there's a lot already in hydro. Because it will lower costs, it will improve energy security, and make it less dependent on imported fuel and other sources of energy that are polluting, and it will obviously result in a significant environmental benefits for both Pakistan and beyond. Recently, 2 weeks ago, we published a study on variable renewable energy, and that was commissioned by the World Bank, which shows that the government's target for solar and wind to make up 30% of total capacity by 2030 is not just economically optimal, but it is all technically achievable. This is a great commitment. It needs investments and developments that start today, because 2030 is really around the corner. But reaching 30% of energy production in Pakistan by 2030 is a very strong commitment to this sector, and it makes sense. It will make a lot of savings, and is technically not only feasible but achievable. So the anticipated investments in renewables represent, over the coming years, will represent a remarkable opportunity for creating employment in the sector. The implication for both the renewable energy sector, but also the wider economy, because the number of sectors and activity that can depend on the renewable energy sector and in these investments is huge, as I'll give you a few numbers in a second. So policymakers, to make this opportunity happen, to make all these jobs available, must anticipate the changes in the workforce trends that will materialize as the result of these new investments in renewable energy, and develop a preemptive plan to manage skills requirement and prevent workforce shortages, because the demands will be strong over the coming years. In fact, new investments in renewables could provide more than 220,000 direct jobs in grid-connected wind and solar projects installed by 2030. That's 220,000 direct jobs in the coming decade, basically. And in addition to these direct jobs, the potential is for 110,000 off-grid renewable energy jobs, and maybe close to 300,000 indirect employment, which are projected over this period. So this is more than 3 times the increase of the current employment numbers in the renewable energy sector in Pakistan. So that's the opportunity is there. The jobs will be there. So the graduates and policymakers and universities and all the apparatus of training needs to prepare to provide these skills, because the last thing we want is, as these investments come in, there will be job shortages along the value chain. And in fact, job opportunities exist across the whole value chain, from project planning and equipment manufacturing to construction, installations of facilities, operations and maintenance, and all the support services that come around it: finance, information technology, human resource management, legal, etc. Size of increase of the sector of the decade, you can imagine that the number of jobs that will be created will span across all these activities, because they will require expertise involving both technical and technical skills. So we tend to think of the energy sector as a engineering only sector, and I'm speaking as an engineer who's now an economist, but it's not only that. There will be job creation across all kinds of skills needs, both technical and non-technical again. So the policies to implement the ambitious plan of the government must be coordinated with educational, industrial, and labor policies to better anticipate these demand, these skills demand, and improve strategic planning for skill needs, financing, education, training, etc. And linked to that, moving towards greater gender equality in the power sector serves a tremendous opportunity, allowing the sector to draw from a wider pool of talent. The size of the talent pool will be increasingly important as the sector continues to expand, and will demand growing numbers of people with adequate skills, technical, business, administrative. I was listening to the previous panel where some questions were related to how much experience sometimes are being asked by large firms. I mean, this is a new sector; it's an expanding sector, so I think there will be a lot of jobs for new entrants as well into the labor market, particularly female.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Sorry, please go on.
Yes, let me. You want me to wrap up?
No, no, please go on. I think we have time.
Okay, thank you very much. Um, so so globally, just a few numbers to give you the perspective of the potential of growth of women employment in the sector in Pakistan. Globally, women represent 32% of the full-time employees in the renewable energy sector, which is substantially higher than in other energy sectors. For example, in the oil and gas industry, it's 20% as of 2019. So this is a sector that already globally on averages employs more women, which is good news. But still, in sector, what these have shown is that women's participation is much lower in the STEM job than in non-technical jobs. In Pakistan, 12% of full-time and part-time employees were reported to be women in the sector, which is no small, but is way on the potential. But considerably smaller proportion, less than 3% female employees hold technical job in this sector. This is based on a study we did on the skills in the renewable energy sector. So it tells the potential because the starting is pretty low, and it tells what kind of policies need to be in place to attract female student, female engineers into the sector. And I know we'll have discussion on this later in the panel. And improving the representation in the sector will require a holistic approach. It needs to be concerted efforts to change also the perception of women working in what has traditionally been a dominated sector, the infrastructure in general, but energy in particular. So I could go into more specifics, but I'd like to bring more specifics into the kind of jobs and what opportunities they are in different parts of the value chain, being on business and enterprise management side, project planning, development, beyond the technical jobs. But let me stop here, and I'll come back maybe in the discussion to make it more lively rather than a conference style. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Najy. I really appreciate that, and really grateful for you having highlighted these opportunities. So the future is definitely quite bright for us. And some of the jobs you mentioned about the energy value chain, and we have, of course, Kamran Saab with us and Daniyal, who are working on ground and within the energy sector with hydel and solar. So next question I'd like to address to both of you, and Kamran Saab, maybe you could go first, and then Daniyal, you could follow. Within your specific energy value chain, what are the job opportunities that arise, and where do you see the scope and opportunities for engaging more women in the energy sector?
Thank you, Hira, for giving this opportunity. I'll just, carry on from what Najy actually said, that, this is a new space. And from the previous panel, I also heard that what are the skills that are required. So the best part about this is that the renewable energy is disruption to the traditional or a conventional energy sector. So if you were to put it in a context, it's e-commerce what it was to retail. Renewable energy is to the conventional energy. So experience does matter. But to be very honest, it's also inertia or a disadvantage to people who are used to old ways, and renewable energy is changing it, right? So having worked for a large corporate, which is a very, very invested into a traditional and renewable businesses, we are, for some of our team, it is taking a longer time to adapt. And the people who are the most adapt to it are the younger lot, because renewable energy, just to give you an example, earlier the handicap for women have been that the large infrastructure projects which required relocating or traveling to a remote site, being there during construction and everything, and then there was an operational role and all those other things. And I'm talking about a traditional trajectory which was with the technical roles, right? Now, if you see the wind farms or the solar farms or projects, yes, they're a large installation, but the people required to man those sites are very, very, I would say, low skill jobs. That actually provides an equal opportunity to the women as well. So you can be in design, you could be in the operations, because you are not doing it on the site. You could, so those traditional barriers that culturally have been in this part of the world, I think they've been taken away. The other thing is that a lot of change is happening at such a rapid pace that the younger people who are coming out of college now, with the likes of Lums Institute and other areas, you get to see and you get to train on the newer technologies. So I think the value chain is changing. Yes, there are a lot of traditional projects in the, pipeline, but I think 30 by 30, which is 30% by 2030, and the competitive market which is going to come, is going to change how business was done, and it provides a lot of opportunity. Uh, I think the lastly, I would say that how it changes. One of the key things that we need to focus on, while we need to look forward to having more females in the system or having them jobs, I do see a lot of people at key positions, but it saddens me to see that there are very, very few women in the decision making roles. I mean, Dr. Fatma Khusnood was one of the very few who was leading an industry think tank or industry body. But how many people do we see in the larger enterprises? I think this is what we need to focus on, and this is what, as an organization, it will be a success for us, that if we can get more women in a decision making, because they bring a very, very interesting perspective. And I do feel sometimes that until and unless we change that, it will always be how we can get more women. But I think when you get people in the decision making role, you actually, I mean, everybody can see it, and they can be the biggest champion for that as well. I think for organizations like ours, that's the biggest challenge that we need to overcome, that having more and more women in a decision making role. I think that's the next stage we should be focusing on in this country as well, and this part of the world.
Absolutely. I think we're all working towards that, really, or we've started at least. Let's see how it goes from here. Daniel,
Thank you.
so if you could share, from your
Thank
perspective
you very
on the
much.
same
Can
question.
you hear me, Hira, properly?
Yes,
All right. Thank
yes.
you very much. Thank you. And it was very interesting to hear the previous discussion in the panel as well. And of course, the discussion which Najy and Kamran Kamal Sahab has done as well. And just to add on, so I represent a sector. Primarily, we are a EPC company, and we are doing solar projects across Pakistan. So just to give an insight or insight working as well that currently has been done or has been taking place for right now. So I think I'll agree to what Mr. Kamran has said. Solar or renewables
Okay,
one of the most sorry for the pickup. So renewables is overall one of the key elements of the area, which I believe has been least affected overall from the COVID regime, which has taken place recently. Why would I say that is, but if you look back into the last 8, 9 months, I think overall renewable energy projects, or if you look at the overall Pakistani market as well, the least affected areas could have been the renewables, because these are the projects which are ongoing projects. And I also see something, as Mr. Kamran has said, renewables is something like an e-commerce to the conventional market, business market also. So overall, from the perspective of last 8 months, if I look at, these are the areas which are least affected. Now coming towards the main focus for today, how renewables would be like in the coming years and what sort of jobs it might create for Pakistani market. I think Pakistan has a very interesting renewable market which has been financed at a subsidized rate by the state bank financing scheme also, which has overall helped develop lots of jobs. That's a refinancing scheme which goes in. And because of that, there are lots of job opportunities, which I think will have come across and will come across with the financing coming in from the government of Pakistan. I think currently all the sector that I represent, solar, primarily almost 80 to 90% of the projects, mid-scale and large-scale projects which have been done, are on the State Bank of Pakistan refinancing scheme, and that has helped create lots of jobs. And as we see for the coming year also, well, this policy would remain, I think there would be lots of job opportunities coming in that regard. Now, coming towards the topic of women involvement, I cannot agree more than what Mr. Kamran is, that gradually and slowly there is a presence of women which is increasing out there. There are designers, they're in the field of design, they are in the field of documentation and other scenarios. But yeah, the challenges which are hardcore for the field perspective in terms of remote locations and challenges all across is something which is there. But very rightly, we have been involved in projects which have been done in the far off areas, and we had a strong female presence even in the smaller scale works also, which shows actually the kind of work, and gradually and slowly the things are improving. But surely an important factor to look at in this whole perspective is how can we look forward to increase the scenarios. I surely see that renewable market would develop further, but one thing which can change the perspective, and which I think Women in Energy overall is doing a great job, is the academia and the industrial linkage also. This is something which we see a lot across out there in the different parts of the world, but something which is lagging. So I surely see, if this one thing is developed, where academia or industrial linkage develops a little more, you would see a lot more presence of females and women in the field of energy. But to cut short my discussion, and later I'll come back for making it more interactive. But I surely see that the coming year, in the coming 2 years, renewable will keep on flourishing as it has flourished till now, and there will be more and more job opportunities from the private sector booming in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daniyal, and we are looking forward to that. Dr. Fatima, I'm now going to come to you. And considering that energy is primarily considered to be a technical and field, and it's generally tilted more towards the male gender, if you could share some scope on the critical opportunities that are in the field, and what are the skills that are required in general, and how do you suggest that fresh entrants into the energy industry, particularly women, upskill themselves?
Great. Thank you so much, Hira. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Can you hear me, Hira?
I can hear you, but there's some music in the background. Or some echo. Yes.
Really? That's very strange because I'm absolutely a pin drop silence around me. So it's very interesting to know. Maybe it's the woman effect that's coming on.
It's still there, but I don't. Please carry on. Let's see if we can deal with it. Now,
Okay. Let me just grab my hands free. Maybe that'll help.
so yeah. Anyway, this just does happen sometimes, but yes, Dr. Fatma, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Loud
so the
and
music
clear.
didn't go away, but let's carry on.
Oh wow. Okay. That's
I think it
that's
might be
very
on some of
strange
the
because
browser
it was absolutely.
windows that you've opened or somewhere that might be closed from the previous.
Yeah, I don't know. That's very strange, but anyways, all right. So maybe it's sometimes good to have something in the background. So maybe that's the best way I can put it at the moment. So I think thank you so much, Hira, for having me in this session. It's very enlightening to hear Najy and Kamran, and so is Daniyal, because the topic that we're talking about, that's something which is very close to our hearts, because we being in the energy sector, we face these things every day. Uh, so I'll just take a minute to talk about the diversity and inclusion, and it's not something which is related to women only, but it's I'm talking about the diversity and inclusion in general as well. When we talk about the culture and the ethnicity, I think all these things are very critical when we are looking at hiring or developing workforce for an organization. Why? Because when we have these diverse backgrounds, they ensure that there's an out-of-box thinking, which Kamran was also saying that it does make a lot of difference in the decision making when you have women in such places. And the same thing goes on with the other diverse backgrounds as well, because unless and until you have such things incorporated within an organization, it's very difficult to have that out-of-the-box perspective. Um, Look around you. I think you talk about L'Oreal, you talk about Johnson and Johnson, you talk about Ford. They all have this diversity and inclusion as very much an integral part of their hiring process. And now hiring is just one bit of it. You need to retain them too, and then you have to ensure that you provide them with that non-biased sort of an environment where they can actually express themselves to their fullest. I think that is something which is absolutely very critical about these organizations. And yes, I think it was discussed earlier on as well that we do not see much women in this space as of yet, and it's a very male tilted sector as of now. But like Kamran has already, I think, highlighted that with renewables, it's a new space. So and now when we look at the different phases, for example, for any energy project, you have a construction phase, you have an implementation phase, and then you have an operations phase. So for renewables, which is largely your wind and solar and other similar technologies, the amount of I think skills that you need there, they can be equally inculcated in men as well as in women. So that's a good thing about renewables. And I would also like to highlight here about what Hira Women in Energy has already been doing. So you guys have been training solar technicians, and those trainings were done for the women. I think, if I'm not wrong, there were 3 or 4 trainings that were organized at different areas within Pakistan. So this is something, and then we even saw those women actually doing the installations. So it was not just limited to the training bit, but it was actually being practiced as well, as they were actually using those skills and inculcating it into various projects and everything. So I think this is something which is very important. So to answer the first bit, that it's still male oriented, I would say yes and no. And why yes? Because that's how the conventional energy sector would be. And now, as we're moving towards renewables, with having a 30% of renewable share by 2030, we will also see this shift of more of a gender balance workforce within the renewable space, especially. Moving on to what you were talking about, the scope of the critical opportunities. Like I said, that we can actually, whenever we talk about any typical energy project, or whether it's in renewable or conventional, so you have 3 different phases, which is construction, implementation, and operation. So we do see a lot of women being trained at the technical level. But then again, like Kamran said, we do need to bring them up the ladder as well. They are generally, a lot of them, employed at the technical level or at the middle level, but we see very few of them making it up to the top. So this is something where we really need to work, and this is where I think a group like yours, or the initiatives like yours, really come in handy, because you can actually fill that gap in by training the women, having those curricula, or having those exposure related sessions for them, where they're trained to climb up that ladder. And that is something which is, I think, very critical and important. As for the I think coming on to the next bit of it, that what sort of upskills do we need to have in the women? I think if you look around, as much as we want to include women, at the same time, it's something which we have experienced very. I think something very common is that the highest turnover is at women level as well, and that is something which has been proven in various studies. So as much as we want to retain women, we also see that the turnover that we face is highest in women, and for the logical reasons, for the obvious reasons, that if they have multiple tasks to do within their role as women. So I think they do take breaks, and it generally, then what happens is, when you're taking a break from work, maybe because of family or some other reasons, and the way technology is changing and the way skills are being upgraded with every single day, you feel kind of a little hesitant to join back the workforce because you don't consider yourself ready or you have not kept yourself at par with how things are changing. Now, this is again where the organizations, progressive organizations, come into play. That if they see that spark, they need to then have those small little upskilling sessions or a refresher course for all such women who want to join back the workforce, so they are at pace. Similarly, there are a lot of online, now there's so much of online material available. I think women should be encouraged to have those things in place while they are not in touch with with the career for one reason or the another. Similarly, there are organizations like you, like platforms like yours, Women in Energy. They can actually pick up these skills and identify where women need help and to bring them in par or to make them ready, even if they're joining after a long break. So I think there are a couple of things that can be done. It's more about how do we want to actually address it. And then another very important point that I would like to make here is and this which I very strongly feel, as much as we need to encourage women, as much as we need to work on their skills, I strongly feel that when it comes to hiring, I think everybody should have that equal opportunity. We at that point should not then give any quota or any special preference to women. I would say put all these special efforts at a step back. Maybe when it's at the time of training, put extra effort with their training. Make them that competitiveness ready in that particular environment, because then that will give them that confidence that they have come to a particular position after competing just like any regular person would have done that competition. So I strongly feel when we give these special quotas or something, we actually I would not say looking down, but we are actually then creating some discrimination within our organizations itself. So, as a woman, and I have seen that as well, that it's very critical and important that you have that confidence that you have actually beaten all the men at your station and you have reached this position. And it's not because of your woman card that you have been chosen to be at this place. So my 2 cents would be that please work as hard on their skills, on their upskilling, which and the opportunities are there. Like platforms like yours, organizations can run the different sort of refresher courses. Then there are a lot of online material available. So women who are taking a break for any reason, they need to keep themselves aware. So they at all times they are at par in terms of the skills development that's been happening. So and I think like it was said in the previous session, I was just hearing where Elif was saying that women are resilient by nature.
Yes.
So by no means it's something that they cannot do. It's just they have to be polished and guided in that manner while they're at the training session, at the training arm or at the training layer. And then, so when they are there to compete, they have that equal standing in terms of their preparedness to compete for any position that they would like to.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Fatma. And as you all know, we're doing this session as part of our job fair. So we have a lot of fresh graduates and job seekers on the panel. There's a sort of an expo going in parallel as well, where they're meeting recruiters and different organizations are already there. They've set up their booths. But we have a couple of students here who are asked some questions, and I would like to, bring them forward here. So we have Ali Husnain, who says that there are a lot of opportunities in Pakistan related to renewable energy, but due to lack of expertise, financially, we can't develop our energy sector. So, as a student, what is our responsibility in the developing of the energy sector in Pakistan? And the second question, somewhat similar, is from Anam Batul, who is saying that she's how to know about the job opportunities in the renewable energy sector. She's a certified power and renewable energy engineer, but she's not finding any opportunities. So, where do we stand in terms of creating opportunities? So, if I could open up the floor, and whoever would like to sort of take a dab. So we have Najy also interested, Dr. Fatma as well, and Daniyal. So let's go with Daniyal. You raise your hand first.
All right. Thank you very much. I think answering these questions as a student, what I recommend is whenever we are hiring, Let me share a very interesting and on-ground reality for all the students who are part of it. So whenever we are hiring people or graduates who work from renewables or want to work in the renewables, you have to understand this is a skill set generally which is not taught as such in detail in academia or universities right now, but rather a more hands-on or a focused or on a hands-on kind of experience that it is taken. But I do recommend such fresh students who are listening that if you get an opportunity, especially one into their final years, look towards your final year projects, which are a little more practical in renewables, because generally whenever we are hiring and then somebody comes in as a fresh graduate and has done their thesis or research a bit more on renewables, that's something which makes you stand out. So if you are really potentially looking towards a future in the renewables, so one thing you need to focus is come towards a background or a skill set which requires this. And number two, an opportunity. There are lots of organizations in Pakistan. I'm also part of a consortium where we are working for developing the skill sets also across Pakistan through skill sets based trainings. So what is an interesting aspect that you have to look towards is that for the students, I think there used to be a concept of apprentices or which used to come at the previously, but I think lots of our companies do have their programs in which they are taking interns and opportunities such like this. So this is definitely something which can create lots of job opportunities. Now this hopefully answers the aspirants of renewables students were part of it.
Perfect. Najy, you had something to add to this.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to thank Daniyal. These were very concrete advice to students. So in terms of again, there's no doubt there's going to be investments in this sector. It is growing. So as a student, my advice is, first of all, the opportunities will be in different areas. One shouldn't associate the sector just with very specialized engineering in solar, although that's a very strong signal, as Daniyal just said, to do your end of a studies project in this field. But basically, as Fatima was saying, there's different phases in investment in this sector. So in the first phase, I can see growth in different areas, including in the manufacturing side. So mechanical engineers could look into opportunities because Pakistan today has very limited manufacturing capacity in the sector, but we should expect, especially with the cost going down, we should expect that there'll be more investment in this sector. So mechanical engineering, IT engineers, I think these are the sectors that will definitely benefit from the growth of renewable energy sector. But then beyond that, in terms of management, operations, the whole space of business and management, be financial, accounting, business development, project management, planning, etc., will offer definitely large opportunities. So that's one advice I'd like to give to existing students, is to understand the value chain of the sector. And as others were saying, there's so much information right now on understanding the sectors and the opportunities that I know this is a job fair about STEM, which is something I will encourage, but there's opportunities all across the value chain. The other point I'd like to make, and it's less of a responsibility for the student, but maybe from the industry itself or the government, but I would think the industry could do it, is have platforms of information on opportunities. And I know there was a question on this by one participant. Where can that person find the job opportunities? I don't know what existing platforms they are for matchmaking in the job market in Pakistan exist, but sometimes sector-specific platforms can be useful. So since this sector will grow, there may be an opportunity for the industry to organize a platform for matchmaking and for job openings, so that students that are close to come out in the job market can know what opportunities are out there. Last point I'd like to make. Sorry, I was a bit long, but I think this is an important point, and I know there was a question on this on home-based work and and particularly for women to join the labor force. We are working in supporting the government, actually at the provincial level, because it's a provincial prerogative, in improving the regulatory framework for home-based work in all sectors, to make it easier. The point is to make it easier for those in the labor market that work from home, be it in IT, be it in low-skill activities, any activities, to have a link with the formal market, to be able to supply the formal market, to be able to know what's happening in the formal market. I think it will be important in this sector as well, again, because there's many functions in this sector which can call for entrance that could come from the home-based market, which is very informal now, and I think this linkages needs to be established. And as Fatima put it earlier, there's so much training material out there. There's so much tools and opportunities to train oneself that this transition from home-based work, because a number of women in particular, maybe after studying, they don't enter directly the job market, and then they have a less linear career path. We need to find these tools, training in particular, and getting the home-based job market closer to the outside formal job market is absolutely critical for women in particular. Let me end here. Over.
Dr. Fatima, do you still have something to add to that?
No, I guess I said Daniyal covered it so well.
Perfect. Dr. Fatima, your voice is echoing again, but I think what I've understood is that Daniyal and Najy have answered that sufficiently. So you're okay with that. Perfect. So my last question to sort of all of you, you're all representing great companies and organizations like the World Bank. We've understood that there is policy requirement, students need to upskill, everybody needs to play a critical role. So as companies, as large organizations, what are the practical real-time commitments that you can make, or something tangible that you will do as a company, as Laraib or as DS Global or Engro Energy, as World Bank, that will have an impact on the ground? Or something that you can say that is in the pipeline for the future,
So I'll start. We as a Laraib actually have put in a program, because we are based in Mirpur. Our plant is based in Mirpur, Azad Kashmir. So we sponsor a lot of students in the Mirpur University of Science and Technology, because that's the local university and it's an engineering university. So we are, intentionally focused that we will select women for those scholarships, the eligible ones. Obviously, as Dr. Fatima said, you don't want to go to a quota system where it becomes looked down upon rather than being something. But then we also encourage internships. So I think what it does provide is, while a same organization might not hire you, but it will provide you with the technical experience. I'll just add, from the previous part, that I think traditionally, I would believe that as the renewable is coming along, the COVID situation, which has forced on all of us to work from home, I think it would make it easier for women to compete, because earlier it used to be, okay, can I relocate? Now, in a lot of other spaces and a lot of other countries, they don't care where you are located as long as your deliverables are. And I think the women actually have an advantage if you look at the female enrollment in the universities and the graduate programs in Pakistan as well. So it's not a dearth. Now, it's not a question of whether they have the skills, it's only that as the opportunities come. And I think this combined with that will also help. The third thing, I think people keep asking about what skills you need to. I think while companies are slow to react, and I've mentioned that there is a disruption coming. So it's an opportunity for these students to grab onto. As Daniyal said, that when I was hiring a year ago, we were hiring management trainee. We actually preferred those people who had done some work on, let's say, electric vehicles or something in the solar space, because we didn't have the capability in-house. Rightly so, because we are not working and these are the new fields. So we would rather buy that skill from a candidate who's done that as a senior project. And I think a lot of times organizations, when we define what skill we require, we actually define it based on what we see around us. Unfortunately, that's not a really good guide, because the people that we are looking at is an engineer who started in a fuel oil plant, and now he's doing maybe he has done a coal project, and now he's looking at an operations. I think it's companies are also learning what skills do matter, and as the competitive market open up, there will be opportunities for entrepreneurship. For example, I'm seeing two questions. I'll just add that what kind of, so everybody says, oh, solar panels actually gain dust and the efficiency goes down. But we have large scale installation of home based solar systems. There's not a single certification or single blog where you can go and check what is the comparable performance of each, like, solar panel or each inverter. It's all on a hearsay. You reach out to two experts, there could be an opportunity. And we've seen it in the computer components and computer. You go to a website, check which mobile is better, somebody's done this job for you, or bloggers and everything. I think there is no independent voice onto which panel is better, which performance is better. It's only on who you interact with. It's become a price race as well, right? Similarly, there will be many, many opportunities in the finance, in the green climate finance, particularly energy audits, which are happening globally now. And, that's where we are going to move. So I think rather than, I represent a very large company in the power sector, but I will admit that it's not us who will give you the guidance. We will actually learn a lot from the younger generation, that how we need to adapt as well. And I think that's they should also look towards entrepreneurship and new ideas and go towards that. Thank you.
Daniyal, would you like to sort of share again? You mentioned a little bit, but specific things that that we can count concretely towards having an impact.
Right. I think Kamran has given very good thoughts already upon it. And just to add on to what little discussion took place, when you talk about renewables generally for masses, in Pakistan, it tends to come down for students also. It tends to come down to very narrow discussions, and that in the end comes down to solar. If you talk about a lot of things, solar is a booming market. As Kamran has mentioned, there is a lot of potential. For example, if I want to go and buy a car, we tend to go towards park wheels. So there is lots of such platforms available for renewables. I think there is definitely a lack of such opportunities. So maybe aspirants who are renewables, maybe Kamran has given you a hint what next you can do, and come up with something which could be very popular thing for the coming times. But as a commitment which is taking place, we are already headed we by and we have an equal balance for gender in our organization. But when we attend to looking towards the market, let's first of all commit and pledge to break down the barrier that there are some jobs for females and there are some jobs for males suitable. And that's a commitment as a business leaders we should take. Once you take this commitment, then of course the message flourishes further. So we take that pledge and we take a commitment. There are jobs out there, and everybody can look towards developing a market. But one more thing for everybody who is listening, and I will share a big market which is coming and which is ahead, and that big market is for domestic renewable solutions, for solar solutions. It has a huge market, and I think it is still untapped. And for such people who are looking for aspirants of being renewable energy, let's not teach them only to develop job opportunities, but let's teach them to develop and come into running businesses also. This is something as a business leader, let's aspire. It's quite good that we are always talking about job opportunities, but let me be very fair and clear. The people and females who are very clear in their mind about business, there's no better place to start off than a solar or a renewable company. I tend to hear lots of renewable energy companies are opening nowadays and taking place. Look towards a bigger challenge, and that is to run a business which could be for solar panels or renewables. We are out there to help such talents, and would definitely like to collaborate with such aspirants who are looking forward to it. My last point is there is a huge market in Pakistan a lot of people are not aware of, is the net metering concept in Pakistan. I think that is opening up. There are lots of jobs which are coming into this field. So people who could be, getting benefit out of that is this market also. These are certain topics to Google, identify yourself, and grab opportunities and look towards a bigger challenge, creating jobs, but also giving jobs.
Perfect. Dr. Fatima, I think if you would like to add to that in terms of tangible commitments And also, I guess there is quite a lengthy question for you from someone who I don't have a name to, but they do want to find out about if there is a lag in the energy sector, specifically with regards to the gender ratio, and if there are any programs that have been rolled out to address this. So I do believe that you could address this as part of the tangible commitments, because that is what companies should be doing.
Sure, thank you. First, I would like to say
There's an echo, Dr. Fatima. There's a really bad echo at the back.
Is it better now?
Yeah, I think you need to plug in your headset.
Fatma,
A
just
little.
unplug your
That's what I did.
Okay, it's gone now. It's gone now. Yeah.
Okay.
Please go on.
So hopefully better
Yes.
now. Okay, great. Sounds good. So first, I would like to second what Daniyal was saying, that it's not just the jobs that we want to focus on or we should encourage, but it's also the entrepreneurial mindset. That's very important, especially because when we talk about women, they need that flexibility. So I think it's equally important, and Hira, who would know that better than you? You being doing that, mentoring, I think running such programs, the startup cups. So I think this is something where, again, like Daniyal said, the distributed generation is the future, especially when we talk about the renewables, and especially when we talk about solar. So I think that is something that we really need to focus on. As for the question, I would tend to agree, and this would actually fall back to what Kamran initially mentioned, that in the conventional energy mix that we were into, yes, it was very male intensive because of the skills and the physical power that we usually needed, and that by virtue of being that mindset that men are better at that than women, this trend will definitely change with the renewables being 30% by 2030. Now the design and the implementation and the construction can equally utilize women and their skills, because this is something which is equally being transferred to both gender. Like it can be gender free actually. As for what initiatives have been taken, I would like to quote my own organization, Engro. Engro has been very, very, very strongly following this women inclusion, whether that's their third project or whether they're their other projects. So you would be, I think, you would definitely know, and so would Kamran, that the third project that we have, we not only made sure that we hire the local talent where the diversity part comes in, but also 70% of the local Tharians were given that job, and out of that, I think majority, if I'm not wrong, majority have been women. Even our the dumb mine drivers are actually women. So we have trained women to do that, and now even the master trainers doing that. So yes, as much as there was a lag which was being felt, but now that has been changed, and organizations like Engro are playing a very key role in overcoming that lag and consciously making sure to include women workforce. One and two, not only at this technical level, but at Engro, we're also ensuring that women are actually now being placed at the key leadership positions as well. So it's not only just the technical skills level, but also at the decision making level, which I think again was identified as a key challenge. So this is something which is being consciously done by an Engro, and I think that being an example, the organizations are now following into the same footsteps and doing that. So yes, as much as there's a lag, we are moving very fast to overcoming it, and I foresee that it will be overcome very soon.
Thank you so much for that. I think there's a lot for us to sort of take from that. A lot of learning as students, as new job entrants, even for us being in the system for so long. Yes, I do believe entrepreneurship is the way forward. That's like my favorite word, and clean technology is definitely up for grabs, at least in Pakistan. So we have about 3 minutes left. So as a last concluding remark, if you would like to, share something that's been left out, or which is like a passion point for you that you would like to share with all of us regarding opportunities and skills. So now is the time. The floor is open. Yes.
Thank you. Happy to come in. I mean, first on the commitment side, I didn't want to ask that question. I mean, our commitment is first to invest in the sector. So we're working very closely with the government to invest in the renewable energy sector. So we are on solar, wind, renewable energy and hydro in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We have a new project just signed. So that's a concrete commitment, and we'll have more coming. So I hope we'll be a part with this transition. And in every one of these projects, we push so that there's more female employed, especially in the project management units, and that's something that we put as a requirement. As we do, by the way, internally, we're committed to female gender balance in recruitment and managerial positions, and little things like having gender balance panels of recruitment is so important, and maybe companies could commit to such practices. Other commitment is the more broadly is the creation last year of WIPOR, which is female employment in the energy sector in South Asia, and we'll continue that. Last but not least, our new strategy going forward for the next 5 years will have definitely supporting the transition in renewables as a big theme. And another big growing theme is good education and female employment. And that we will grow in these areas, especially good education and but the transition to labor market. So it's our commitment on this side. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. So if there are no last remarks, I'd like to sort of conclude this panel. I think it's been great. I am super excited, and as women in energy and of course women engineers, we're part of the V-Power network. We would love to support you guys as companies. I know we have standing commitments from K Electric and Engro Energy for this job fair as well, along with V-Power. And we'd like to see how we can support as organizations, Laraib Energy and DS Global as well. So, we can help you realize some of your commitments. And with that, thank you, all of you, Kamran Saab, Dr. Fatima, Najy, and Daniyal for being here. I'm going to sort of let you exit this room now. And we are heading towards the conclusion of our first session for today. And we have a break for about an hour. And at 12 o'clock, we'll be reconnecting for the next panel sessions. In the interim, we have the expo going on. This is a networking break, so you are very welcome to connect on the networking and see who you connect with. Make the relationships that matter. That's one of the key aspects that was pointed out in the discussion right now as well. As a skill, build the network. Do the internships that matter, that may not lead you to a job, but definitely will lead you somewhere with experience. So with that, thank you so much, and we're signing out. I'm signing out at least. Ramla, if you have something to add. Ramla, if you have something to add. So Ramla's just joined us, but do you have something to add, Ramla? No, I guess not. So we'll end this here and see you guys after the break, inshallah, at 12 o'clock.